Well, let's get back on the 1966 Chevy Nova. Sit back, relax. Hope you got your brake fluid, maybe some starting fluid if it's early in the morning. Sit back, relax, enjoy the video of a little more work on the 1966 Chevy Nova. Something I've been thinking about for a little while here is I don't like the drums painted silver. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pull those drums off. We're going to rough them up a little bit, clean the dust off them, and throw a coat of black paint on them so they don't stick out behind the wheels as much. And I think that'll look nicer. So what we're trying to do here is we've got our drums off the car, and we want to get some small scratches in this paint so that the new paint, the black paint that we're going to put on here, sticks nice and doesn't flake off, because only thing worse than silver drums behind your wheels is black drums behind your wheels with flaking paint on them. So we're going to take this wire brush, we're going to rough this up, and then we're going to go back with a little bit of sandpaper, and on all the flat areas, try and hit the flat areas again and get some fine scratches in here, something for that paint to bite to and not flake off and look bad 3 days after you put them on and roll down the road. Scotch-Brite pad that we're going to be using, and a little piece of 120 grit sandpaper just to kind of go over and make sure that we've got really nice scratches on the most of it. Now it's a real rough casting here, so we're not going to get way down into the deep stuff, but we're going to do our best to get it roughed up and get it taken care of. And make sure that that is looking nice. Then we'll throw probably a little bit of maybe an adhesion promoter. I don't know. We'll have to take a look and see what we've got. But we need to get these flat areas just kind of roughed up a little bit to make sure we've got a good mechanical bond on our drums. We've got some wax and tar remover that we're going to use here, and we're going to clean this off and get any of the loose leftover debris that didn't blow off, that maybe will get popped off and at least out of there. So we're not leaving any loose debris, and we're definitely going to need to warm these drums up and make sure that they're good and dry, because we don't want leftover moisture on this. And we want to get into these recessed areas here and make sure they're all wiped off so that anything that's sitting in there is cleaned up. We'll get these all dried off, get them warmed up a little bit, and we'll bring you back in when that's all set. One thing I found on the Jungle website were these little pyramids that whenever I'm painting, I put them up on these, and that way, whatever I'm painting isn't sitting directly on the cardboard, and you end up getting a big, heavy bead of paint all the way around the edge. So I found these on the Jungle website, ordered those up, and these have been a game changer for painting stuff in the barn here. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our propane torch and I'm going to warm these drums up. And what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to burn the paint that's on there. I'm trying to evaporate all of the moisture that's left on these. Like I said, these are a rough casting, and in these little nooks and crannies is going to be moisture that will contaminate your paint and possibly make it bubble up. So I'm going to warm them up a little bit and get that excess moisture evaporated. It's also going to do a double effect that if there are any hairs or strings or anything, you're going to see those go away. Those are going to get burned up and they won't get in our paint either. Don't let anybody kid you. This is cast product and it does absorb moisture. And when you put heat to it, you can see the surface moisture on the top just evaporate away. So get these all warmed up. And then we're going to figure out if we can use some adhesion promoter on these, or if we're just going to go with the duplicolor caliper paint straight over the top of it. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to read the instructions on both cans. First of all, to see if they're compatible, and then see if we can use them, or we're just going to use the paint all by itself. Probably come back and hit this one more time with a little bit of heat, make sure that they're nice and warmed up. And all of that moisture is gone, give it a little bit more chance to evaporate off. We took a look at the adhesion promoter and the paint, and it looks like this is going to be compatible with our duplicolor drum and rotor paint. So we're going to take and we're going to put just 2 small coats. They say wait 10 minutes apart, and that helps the paint adhere to the paint that's already on these drums. We're getting our first coat of adhesion promoter on and just putting a light coat. Make sure we're not globbing it on and it's not too thick. And then we'll wait 10 minutes and get that second coat on. Got the door open for a few minutes, just getting some fresh, clean air into the pole barn. I've got the air conditioner on. It's keeping things cool in here, keeping that humidity down. So just going to wait a few minutes, maybe throw a fan on, make sure we don't have a whole ton of fumes in here, and let that first coat dry for 10 minutes. Going to get all of our paint shaken up and make sure we've got a good mix in our can, so when we spray it comes out in a nice even coat. Gonna shake our paint up here and make sure that it's all mixed up in the can so we get a nice even coat on our drums. Gonna do this for about 1.5 minutes or so. Make sure that everything's all mixed up nicely in this duplicolor caliper and drum paint. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and get our second coat, which is gonna probably detonate the rest of this can. Got the second coat on here. That's the telltale sign that the adhesion promoter is running dry. And we'll get this all spruced up here and let it dry for 20 minutes now, and make sure that that's all dry before we start laying paint on. You'll notice that I haven't touched our drums with my hands, even though I've washed them off with grease and tar remover, actually a little bit of carb cleaner when I was cleaning something else, trying to make sure that all the oils off my hands won't get on these. After everything is cleaned, after you've got your first coat, you don't want to touch it, because immediately after you clean your hands start making more grease and oil on your skin. So you don't want to touch these, and you don't want to contaminate the paint that you're about to put on. It's about 2 o'clock here in the pole barn, and we're going to have kind of a short day today, and that's why I'm doing this kind of quick thing here with the drums, because I'm going to take my mother and my wife out for a nice dinner tonight, so I've got to get in by 3 o'clock and get cleaned up so we can go out to dinner. So we'll get this paint on, get it going, and get finished up for the day. One thing that you may notice is I've always got a fan blowing when I'm painting in the pole barn of Bad Decisions and Broken Dreams. And the reason for that being is to correctly dry paint, it needs to have a flow of air rolling over it all the time. And what that does is that evaporates all of the chemicals in the paint. So if you just leave it in a still atmosphere, it's going to take a lot longer to dry, and it's going to take too much time. And between coats, you could get runs, you could get peel up. So we've always got a fan going on to keep a constant flow of air moving inside the shop and evaporating all of those chemicals that are in the paint. And you want to be real careful when you're doing this. You don't want to do it too soon, because adhesion promoter is flammable. So we're just warming this up a little bit, running some warm air. You can see we're way far away, and we're just blowing warm air over these drums to make sure that anything that's on there has dried and all the chemicals are wicked off. And even when you're doing this, even with the adhesion promoter, you can see the warm air pulling all of those chemicals out. And we've let it dry enough so it doesn't have a bunch of it in there, so we're not actually starting our rotors on fire. Well, that's a first. Thing actually lit on its own. That doesn't happen very often. That's why I always have the lighter around. See, there it is. Not going to start. Okay, we got those warmed up a little bit. All of those chemicals are evaporating out of those. And now we're ready for our first coat of caliper paint. We have our calipers are all dried. We waited our 20 minutes for our adhesion promoter to dry. One thing that I do want to talk about is you don't see Cody Barrel or any of the other pups in my videos while I'm painting, grinding, or spraying any kinds of chemicals inside the pole barn. And what that reasoning is that, first of all, a dog's nose is been said to be 10,000 times stronger at detecting scents than a human's nose. So having them in the barn while we're spray painting or spraying chemicals is just horrible for them. That's just kind of a sensory overload on their little nose. So we leave them in the house, keep them safe, and make sure that they're not
breathing in those chemicals or smelling those chemicals. Also, while grinding or performing operations that have a lot of noise. The same thing, dogs' ears are much more sensitive than people's ears. So if you're doing something that's really loud and you've got ear protection on and your dog's ears are many times more sensitive than yours, that's a stress on them that we don't need. So we leave the dogs inside the house.
All right, we are going to pop the door open here and put a light coat of paint on these drums. And what we're trying to do here is we don't want to put a heavy coat on. We want to get just a light coat on to get something for the paint to bite to on top of that adhesion promoter. So let's get that on. We're going to be 10 to 12 inches away and just giving some sweeping motions and just getting a little bit of paint on there to get the next coat something to stick to. We're going to spray out here, make sure we've got a clean nozzle, and now we're going to start painting. Getting just a light coat on here. And make sure nothing's bubbling up. Nothing's contaminating our paint. And that's the big thing. If you haven't waited long enough, you take a look at your paint and you'll see it start to crinkle and look bad. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. We want these to look nice, even though there's going to be wheels sitting in front of them. We still want them to look good. Oops, touch that. That was a bad idea. All right. And I'm doing my best to hit this at all angles. So and it looks like I missed an angle here because I've got a spot here where there is no paint, and right here as well. So we'll get, all right. And there is our first coat, just a very light coat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go clean my nozzle off here so that this is ready to go for our second coat. We've got our first coat applied, and I've done and taken a close-up inspection with my readers on. Make sure that none of our paint is bubbling up or doing anything funny in the creaks and crevices of these drums. So we are doing this correctly and things are sticking well. We're going to wait approximately 15 to 20 minutes and then we'll put a heavy coat on, and that should complete the painting of the drums. And once they're dry for 24 hours, we can install them back on the car and get our wheels put back on. Okay, we are ready for our second coat, and of course I set my paint down and have no idea where I put it. Give me just a second here and I'll find it. Okay, so my paint finally revealed itself and I found it. I spend more damn time looking for crap that I set down, don't know where I put it. What a pain in the keister. All right, we're going to start painting this and get a nice thick coat on these drums. Got our drums moved over out of the way. We're going to leave these set for 24 hours, make sure that paint cures completely, and get those back on the Nova. Here's a nice close-up look at our drums after painting. You can see those turned out real nice. We can get in there real close. Nothing is flaking, bubbling up. Those are going to perform quite well on the car once they're installed.
I'd like to introduce a new segment, Ask the Pyrenees. Ask the Pyrenees, the only advice segment on YouTube where three great Pyrenees, George, Cody, and Alfred, answer your questions with sarcasm, wisdom, and judgment only giant fluffy dogs can provide. You ask the questions in our comments section about cars, tools, life, relationships, wiring disasters, or why your project car hates you. And I'll read the pup's official responses during my videos. Expect brutally honest opinions, zero mechanical knowledge, and a whole lot of attitude.
Well, that's going to do it for today's video. Want to thank everyone for stopping in. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I appreciate that. And always remember, if your coffee's hot, your project's not. Get out there, grab a tool, make some bad decisions, and get that project finished. Thanks, and have a good day.